On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast, the P100D's new Ludicrous Plus Easter egg could be even more potent than originally thought. The Supercharger credit system rolls out with full details. Elon Musk reveals a few of his favorite video games, and more. Welcome, everybody, to episode 76 of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast for January 15th, 2017. Ryan McCaffrey joined by a snuggling, resting comfortably Maggie the Boxer. And I apologize to the patrons this week for not getting your early access particularly early. I was in Arizona all week for a really interesting thing. I'll make this quick because I know you want to get on with the Tesla news, but I was given quite the surprise gift over the holidays, and I was given a trip to Diamondbacks, that's my favorite baseball team in Arizona, the Diamondbacks Fantasy Camp, where you basically go and play baseball with a bunch of people also over 30. You get a full uniform, like the real Major League uniform. You're in the spring training facility in the real clubhouse, and you got ex-players out there as coaches. It's a whole baseball experience for a week, and boy, it was something else. If you are a baseball fan, like a serious baseball fan, I cannot recommend it highly enough. So just file that away for later if you're a baseball fan. But I just got back on Saturday, so getting the show done Saturday night here. For most of you, obviously, the show will appear on time. So with that out of the way, let's move on. So first up this week in the Tesla news, it's kind of an interesting potpourri of stuff this week, which I guess isn't unlike a lot of weeks. The goalposts on Ludicrous mode continue to get moved back, or I suppose would it be moved forward? I'm not quite sure how you'd look at it. So the Easter egg that's been promised for the P100Ds that was going to shave a tenth of a second off, it is beginning to push out to the first handful of cars, and it's being referred to by Elon as Ludicrous Plus. And this is what Elon had to say about it on Twitter, saying, quote, "Promising early results from the Ludicrous Easter egg. Looks like 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.34 seconds by Motor Trend spec might be achievable." 2.34. Oh my goodness. By Motor Trend spec, by the way, he's referring to the car having a 1 foot rollout before slamming the accelerator to do that 0 to 60 run. One other interesting note about this Easter egg, which, by the way, if you are getting, have, or plan to get a P100D, you're going to activate that by holding down the Ludicrous button on that screen where you choose between Sport and Ludicrous. Hold down that button for a few seconds, and then you're going to see the warp space, Star Trek warping through space, warp speed graphic come up on the screen. And then after that, a prompt will come up. It's a warning screen, actually, that's half serious and in typical Tesla fashion, half kind of funny and jokey as well. It says, "Are you sure you want to push the limits? This will cause accelerated wear of the motor, gearbox, and battery." And your choices are, "No, I want my mommy," or "Yes, bring it on," with an exclamation mark. So what I find interesting about that is I think it's cool of Tesla to make it very, very clear to the end user that, hey, this really is pushing the limits. Doing this all the time really isn't great for your car, but if you want to wring every last drop of performance out of this thing, we are giving you the ability to do that with this little Easter egg. Because by Easter egg standards, that's one of the easiest ones you could possibly ever hope for to activate. I mean, just holding a button for a few seconds. You could, if some dude lines up against you at a stoplight, and there's absolutely nobody around, nothing but straight, clear road in front of you, and it's a safe spot to maybe take somebody off the line, you can absolutely cue that up by the time the light turns green. But I will say, I can't imagine anyone would, well, you know, what I guess what I'm trying to say is, while I appreciate the warning from Tesla there and the transparency, I can't really imagine that anyone would be using it so often as for it to actually have a tangible negative effect on the car and its systems and its parts and its bits and pieces. And by the way, you also get a new instrument cluster option, because you know how on both the left and right sides of the speedometer there in the instrument cluster, you can choose between, you know, you can display your music, you can display maps, navigation, you can display energy graph usage. So when you activate this Easter egg, it'll also give you a new choice for a display on the instrument cluster, and that's readouts. And what that does is it shows you a pretty raw version. It's not really dressed up, prettied up. It shows you a bunch of figures. It shows you battery power, front and rear motor power, longitudinal, and the last one, longitudinal acceleration, which in the video I watched from Brooks at Drag Times, who always seems to be on top of these performance-related things, it peaks in his video. He does a 2.46 or so, or yeah, I believe that was correct. About 2.46 seconds, and he peaks at 11.2 meters per second squared on that longitudinal acceleration. Now, as you probably remember from school, gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. So you are in fact going somewhat significantly faster than gravity when you are slamming the pedal down in a Ludacris P100T Model X, or I should say Ludacris Plus, I guess. 11.2 meters per second squared. That is impressive. That's well over 10% better. That's probably closer to 15. Actually, yeah, maybe even closer to 20% faster than gravity. So that is crazy, and that is yet another advancement from Tesla. As you know, just last week, I think I talked about the Faraday Future and how they're, you know, the FF91 that they want to build, that they're taking free reservations for, as well as their sort of equivalent of signature reservations, signature editions. And, you know, I was speculating that car, if they were to actually build it with everything they said, it would probably be a $200,000+ car, because one of the things they said was, you know, this 130 kilowatt hour battery car would have 2.3 second, or 2.4, second acceleration. 2.39, I remember now. And so Elon's already got almost, it sounds like, if I'm interpreting his tweet correctly, almost by accident, he's looking at 2.34 seconds. So, before Faraday can even get their prototype rolled home from CES, Elon's already got it topped. And by the way, just as an interesting little note, I did speculate last week that if Faraday built that car as is, it would probably be $200,000, and now reports this week that it might actually be closer to $300,000. So again, hope they build it. I mean, it looks like, you know, it'd be a heck of a machine if they could build it, but that is going to be out of probably even many Tesla owners' price range. Not just certainly it's out of mine. Anyway, next item this week, just a fun little thing, or rather, I wanted to go to, and that is Elon Musk, the video game player. Elon, like me, and probably a decent number of you, does play games. He's a gamer. The Y Combinator podcast got a chance to sit down with Elon semi-recently and asked him about his favorite games. So I thought, this is a short clip. If you're not a gamer, no biggie. But just sort of, even if you're not a gamer, this shows you, again, another side of Elon Musk and sort of what he does. He does like to play games in those very rare times when he's not working at SpaceX or at Tesla or at OpenAI or on this one or that one. So here's Elon talking about, just for a minute or two here, about some of his favorite video games.
I'm looking for a new video game to play. Can you give me a recommendation?
Overwatch.
I play Overwatch.
Yeah, it's
Anything
great.
else? Overwatch is amazing.
Overwatch is amazing. Yeah, generally Blizzard does great stuff. Well, there's Hearthstone.
I haven't tried that one yet.
Yeah,
I know people love it.
that's what my kids play the most. Is Hearthstone.
All right.
Also from Blizzard.
I will check that out tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the time. I know you
All
got
right.
to get going.
Cool. Do you play anything besides Overwatch? I mean, have you tried the new Deus Ex?
I have tried the new Deus Ex.
It's okay, but like
the best game I played recently, and it's not a super new game, is The Last of Us.
oh, is it
It's
really?
from a couple of years ago.
Sure.
I loved it.
Okay, Last of Us.
Yeah.
You like that too? Is it really good?
Uncharted too.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Uncharted.
It was just
Really, The Last of Us
storytelling like that in a video game.
I mean, honestly, I think that's really neglected. I mean, that's the criticism I heard of the latest Deus Ex is the storytelling is kind of lame. And like, whereas the prior Deus Ex and the original Deus Ex was the storytelling was amazing. I don't know if anybody's played. Did you play the original Deus Ex? That was killer.
Yeah.
As games have become more like the replacement for the NFL, I think the storytelling just gets generally neglected. So it was
Yeah.
like especially striking to play one that was like absolutely cinematic
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah, and some of the oldest games, the graphics and sound were terrible, so they had to
But the
rely on
story was so
storytelling.
good.
Yeah,
Like the old Mario games had incredible story.
yeah.
So Elon there mentioning Overwatch, which, by the way, is IGN's Game of the Year. That was what we voted for 2016. Not my personal choice, but we as a team did indeed vote Overwatch from Blizzard as our Game of the Year for 2016. You heard Elon mention Deus Ex Mankind Divided, he sort of mentions it being okay. That I played a bit of it. It's excellent. It's very open-ended, which is cool. And Elon also mentions that he adores the original Deus Ex, which for me is genuinely a top 5 all-time game. The original Deus Ex is sort of the first, the prototypical, and possibly still one of the best sort of just open-ended games that lets you really approach things in any number of ways. And in fact, Elon's tweet that statement about the original Deus Ex caught the eye of the original Deus Ex's creator, a man who, in my opinion, is as legendary in the game design field as Elon Musk is in his multiple fields. And that gentleman is named Warren Spector, who I've had the pleasure of speaking with and visiting at his studio a number of times over the years. And Warren tweeted out, "Just heard you liked Deus Ex. Proud to hear it. I'm a fan of your work too." Smiley face in his tweet, which I thought that was just a really cool thing that, another, two people that are very well respected in their fields, even if they don't know each other, just sort of a mutual respect there. Warren, by the way, if you're not familiar with Warren Spector or Deus Ex, I would say that the best summary of Warren Spector is that he was part of a studio called Looking Glass Studios, which in my humble opinion, because I was sitting down making my notes for this week's show, and the thought hit me. I was like, man, wait, Looking Glass was the Beatles of game design. And I know that's a ridiculous thing to say for a lot of people, but the comparison is apt in my opinion. It's a game development studio that was made up of legendary talent, just people that Warren Spector, Ken Levine being another famous alumni who's gone on to do the BioShock series, among other many great things. But Looking Glass was an incredible studio with amazing talent that had a legendary portfolio, but they broke up way too soon. And they didn't end up staying together as a studio for super long. So, Warren Spector, just a great figure in the games industry. Can't imagine he'll hear this, but I have had the pleasure of telling them that to his face before. But it's cool to hear that Elon still finds a little free time which is good, because it's important to balance yourself out, even if you're working as hard as Elon does on some of the world's biggest problems and biggest challenges. I'm glad to hear. I'm really happy for him to hear that he finds time to play Overwatch and that he plays Hearthstone with his kids. So I thought that was really cool. Next up this week, The Supercharger credit system is fully detailed now. For those of you who may have missed it a few shows back or so, the Supercharger system is changing. The cars will no longer be including free unlimited supercharging for life. Instead, here is how it's going to go, and it's mostly what we'd already heard, what I'd already reported on a previous podcast. But we've got some additional details now. So you will indeed get 400 kilowatt hours worth of free supercharging per year, and that will renew annually. So that date starts and refreshes at the anniversary of whatever your delivery date is. So if you take delivery of your car on July 1st, then you're July 1st to June 30th of the following year, and then it renews. The unused credits do not roll over, by the way, and as previously mentioned, that 400 kilowatt hours is about the equivalent of 1,000 miles worth of driving. So Electrek notes, the company confirmed that it determined the amount based on current usage of the Supercharger network, and they came to the conclusion that 400 kilowatt hours covers the annual long-distance driving needs of the majority of Tesla owners. So more details here. Additional Supercharger juice, once you use your 400 kilowatt hour allotment each year, that's going to be billed at a rate that is comparable to that state's or provinces, or I guess in Europe, a country or state, just region. Let's call it region for a nice, easy generic term. For your region's electricity rates. So the full list of states and the prices within those states and provinces and regions is at tesla.com/support/supercharging. In California, for example, because I know a large number of my listeners, including myself, are in fact in California. So we're going to be billed at 20 cents per kilowatt hour. Again, once you've exhausted that 400 kilowatt hours per year, it's going to cost us about 20 cents per mile in California. Now, that's at tier 2, so the higher speed supercharging. Now, as you may know, if a supercharger station is almost full and you plug in on a supercharger stall that somebody's already on, you're going to go slower because that's just the way the superchargers work. There's only so much juice that can get kicked out at a time, and if the person that got there first will get the higher speed charging. So if you're getting the higher speed charging at your supercharger, it's 20 cents per kilowatt hour, but if you're getting the slower charging, it'll just cost you half of that, 10 cents per kilowatt hour. To put that in perspective for you, Tesla notes that that's about $15 to drive from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Again, if you've already exhausted your free annual allotment of 400 kilowatt hours and you still need to go from San Francisco to LA or vice versa, it's going to cost you approximately $15, which again, that's even if you've got a decently fuel-efficient car that can do that on with one fill-up, that's still, probably at gas rates now, that's still probably a third of what it would cost you. Of course, that depends wildly on the vehicle, but yeah, that's still pretty affordable. Also, I wanted to add a correction as part of this story, and it is through really no one's fault. I reported last week via a message that Trev Page of Model 3 Owners Club received directly from Tesla. I had passed along from Trev that those CPO cars, the certified pre-owned Teslas, would be subject to that new supercharging policy, rather than the original unlimited for the life of the car one that they were originally sold with. And of course, you remember I was not thrilled about that. I had expressed my disappointment in Tesla for that. But the good news here is that Tesla taketh away and Tesla giveth back. Tesla's head of global sales and service is a gentleman by the name of John McNeil. He replied to Trev Page's reporting of that original statement that he had gotten from Tesla, and Mr. McNeil said, "Not correct. CPOs carry lifetime supercharging with the car," which is exactly what I was upset about, that's how what it was originally billed as. And then, so that was one tweet. And then, of course, after Trev very understandably followed up amid the confusion that he'd been suddenly found himself in the middle of, McNeil was kind enough to reply again saying, "Firm answer, all Teslas purchased with supercharging for life carry that benefit for the life of the car." So that is good. So it's no longer just going to be private sales. It's going to be, so any Tesla that's out there right now is going to carry free supercharging for the life of the car, no matter if it's sold privately and sold to the next person that way, or if it's traded into Tesla and turned around as a certified pre-owned vehicle from Tesla. So that is really good news. I'm glad to see that was that I can retract my disappointment in the company on that one. Finally this week, well, actually sort of two little things, but I'm going to put one of them at the very end of the show. The first one is that Tesla has discontinued the ventilated seat option on the new premium seats on the Model S and Model X. There was no direct reason given at the time that I recorded this on Saturday, very late in the evening, but looking at this, thinking about this, I've read a lot about this on the TMC forums. For me, it's probably one or more of the following three things. Either number one, the seats did not cool very well, because that's what those perforated seats do, that the non-perforated theoretically can't, is cool you. So perhaps they didn't work very well, which some owners actually have complained about. Number two, it's entirely possible that simply nobody really wanted them. That the response wasn't great. And number three, they perhaps, I'm not floating any conspiracy theories here. I mean, again, I've seen threads, but I haven't seen any like massive complaining. But maybe those perforated seats were a little too susceptible to tearing. So again, I figure it's probably one or more of those three things together. And really my only particular takeaway from this is a simple one, but one worth mentioning anyway, and that's, I would say just now don't expect perforated cooled seats as an option on Model 3 anymore if it's being removed from the S and X. Last thing for the week, I mentioned I guess it probably was, it was last week's show, that no audio of the investor Q&A event with Elon and JB Straubel at the Gigafactory had surfaced, because I had hoped to bring you that audio. Well, a person or two at the event did in fact record the audio, and the audio is out there now. And kindly, Ride the Lightning listener Matt Para got it and cleaned it up as best he could. I'm going to put it at the end of the show and just sort of leave for you to chew on if you like, because again, there's not really anything particularly newsworthy or super discussion worthy out of it outside of what I talked about last week. But it's there if you do want to listen to it. Even with Matt's superhuman efforts to clean it up, it's still a little tricky to listen to. The audio quality is not super great. So again, I'm going to slide that in at the very end of the show if you would like to hear it, so that if you wouldn't, you can just press stop and be done and have heard everything else. That wraps it up for this week's Tesla news. I'm going to come right back with a good handful of excellent Ride the Lightning hotline calls. I'll wrap up with a few final thoughts, and then again, we'll get to that Gigafactory investor Q&A audio at the very, very end of the show. So stay tuned right after this. All right, time for the Ride the Lightning hotline, and I am so appreciative that a bunch of you called in with some excellent stuff this week. Again, anything I can't get to over the course of the month goes into the Patreon exclusive bonus episode. That's for $10 and up patrons. And in fact, I forgot to mention on last week's show that the one for January did go up last weekend, and featured in that, if you're curious, Frank from Norway, Crush from Half Moon Bay, John Lee from Charleston, South Carolina, Dylan from Montgomery, Tom in Miami, and Andrew from Canada. So if you are one of those folks, you'll want to hear yourself and see what the response was on the Patreon exclusive episode. And for the rest of you, if you are backing at the $10 or higher level, be sure to check that out. That's an extra episode filled with Ride the Lightning hotline calls that posts each and every month on the Patreon page. So let's get rolling this week with, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 excellent calls lined up. And I do remind you that if you've got a question, comment, discussion topic, you want to reply to something that I said or one of the other callers said, give a call to the Ride the Lightning hotline anytime, toll free. The number is 1-888-989-8752. That's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. You can also just record something into your phone's voice recorder and email it to me if that's easier as well. You can do that. The email address is teslapodcast@gmail.com. I want to go to my friend Michael from Millbrae, who responds to something I was saying 2 or 3 weeks back about I'd sort of compared as a non-Tesla owner, as someone sort of, again, that out on face pressed against the glass looking in. I kind of thought that the software updates that the Teslas will all get and our Model 3s will all get must be akin to being like a kid on Christmas morning where you go, ooh, let's unwrap the present and see what Santa Musk got us today. But Michael from Millbrae he wants to bring me back down to earth a little bit and lend some perspective as an actual Tesla owner on that. So Michael, take it away.
Hey Ryan, it's Michael from Millbrae. I thought I'd respond to what you said a couple of weeks ago about how software updates can be like Christmas morning. You're absolutely right, but I did want to sort of temper people's expectation with a little bit of, a little shot glass of cold water on this. Just the way that it works right now is sometimes a full day worth of anticipation followed by a little bit of a letdown. This morning, for example, I saw a notification on my phone from the night before that a software update was available. But the updates don't actually install automatically. You also can't schedule or start the installation from your phone. You have to go back out to the car once you see this notification, set up the installation, wait a couple hours for that to happen, but you can't be driving, so I had to wait until this evening to actually install the update. And then wait a couple hours for the install to happen, run out to the car once you get a notification that it's done, see what the release notes are, and they are the same as last time. Often, 3 out of 4 times I'd say there's a software update, but it's not actually anything user-facing. It's just under the hood updates. No new features, no new release notes. Christmas morning anticipation followed by the exact same car that you had the day before. That said, it is an amazing car that over the last 7 months that I've had it have become so much better, and this is something that just no other manufacturer has seemed to have any comprehension of. So that's where things are. A lot of good, some bad. Just thought I'd share. Take care. Bye.
Michael, I appreciate you helping out myself and us other future Tesla owners, us Model 3 reservation holders. I appreciate you helping us to more realistically calibrate our expectations for these things. Of course, by the way, I say of course too much. I need to stop doing that. While Teslas do absolutely get better over time, there's heaps of evidence to support that, it sounds like from what you're saying, Michael, that the closest analog might be iPhone updates, where sometimes usually once per year in an iPhone's case. It's a big deal update with some real tangible stuff in it that you get pretty excited about. But that every other time that it needs a system update throughout the year, an iPhone, the update's nothing to get excited about, and it's usually just under the hood tweaks. Oh, phrasing there, a little for you Archer fans. Phrasing on under the hood. Pardon the expression. I'm talking about a Tesla there, but yeah. Nevertheless, it's going to be really cool to have a car that does get better over time, even if it's very small, subtle things going on behind the scenes. Next up is Justin from Berkeley, another Bay Area guy here. He has a medium-sized dog, not unlike the currently snoozing Maggie the Boxer, and he sort of is wondering how that might work with Model 3. So Justin, let me hear from you.
Hey Ryan, Justin here again from Berkeley. Just was calling to bring up a topic that I hadn't really thought of until recently. Seems kind of silly, but hadn't really thought of it, which is I, like you, have a medium-sized dog similar to Maggie. Glad to hear Maggie's doing better. Your recent visit to the other vet. But in ordering a Model 3, I already have a Model S, and my dog fits perfectly in the back, has his own space, can still fit the two kids, have the space in the front. But with the Model 3, I'm a little concerned about where's the dog going to go, and hadn't really given it too much thought. I have my name down for reservation, all set for that. But starting to think there just may not be enough space in the back the way it's set up. So wonder if you had any thoughts about that, being a dog owner, or if any other people on the Ride the Lightning hotline had any thoughts about that and kind of what their solutions may be. Obviously, it may be a moot point, and the trunk just may be what it is and have to go with the bigger car. But anyway, just thought I'd bring that up and see if there's any ideas. See you later.
Justin, this is actually a really great topic to bring up. And yes, the Model 3 obviously isn't a hatchback, despite the quote-unquote trunk improvements that Elon promised us following those sort of concerns and questions that people had expressed after the initial reveal last March 31st. So I'll tell you, here's what I do in my current car, which is a two-door Infiniti Coupe. And I'm going to warn you up front that your mileage may vary on this depending on how your wife and kids feel about it. So what I did is I actually have a cheap, there's like a $30 faux sheepskin seat cover that I'd bought at Costco years ago. In fact, I bought it to cover, I bought them a set of them to cover my DeLoreans at the time, seats, because they were the original seats and they were dried out and cracked. And then when I eventually was able to redo my seats and restore those, that's when those seat covers ended up being used for dog duty instead, once Maggie the Boxer came into the picture back in late 2006. So I put that cheap faux sheepskin seat cover over the front passenger seat, and then I strapped Maggie in there I have a harness for her that, she wears on her body, and it hooks into, there's like a screwed in clamp thing that goes around a buckled in seatbelt, so that if we ever were in an accident, she's clamped in and she's not going to go far. She's going to go like 2 inches, and then that harness is going to grab her. So you could put your dog in the front seat of your Model 3 and then put, one kid in the middle, one kid on the side, and your wife on the other side. Now, your wife might not like that, which would be entirely understandable. I don't think my wife likes it particularly well either, but you could also get one of those big backseat bench pet blanket cover things that goes over your entire back seat of your car, like the whole rear bench seat. And then you could put the dog back there on one side, left or right, and then your kids in the middle and the other side, and then have your wife be in the front seat. So as far as I can see it, those are the only two options for those of us that are future Model 3 owners who have medium-sized dogs that would fit in the seat of a car. So consider it, and I'm sure you'll figure something out and something that'll work best for you and your family. But yeah, for us dog people, that is a good topic, because again, without that hatchback, it removes that rear area as a place for the dog to ride along in. Okie doke. Let's move on to Jason from Tucson, Arizona. I was just, of course, in Scottsdale for the fantasy camp. So Jason from Tucson calls in from his Tesla, and he has an autopilot concern. Jason, what's the matter?
Hi, this is Jason from Tucson, calling for my Tesla. I have a first world problem, but I'm hoping maybe it's an actual legitimate discussion point as well. One of the restrictions that autopilot used to have is that if you were not on a divided highway, it would limit your top speed to 5 miles over whatever the speed limit was and registered from its GPS or the sign system. A very recent update has changed that to where if you're now not on a divided highway, the max speed limit autopilot will go is the speed limit. Now, for me, this is a bit of a problem because here in Tucson, I don't know anywhere outside of school zones where people go the speed limit. So my choices now is if the system does not think it's a divided highway, either from the GPS or just the information is wrong, my choices are to either turn on autopilot and slow down the flow of traffic, or just not use autopilot. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this. I'm wondering what you think the best way to voice this to Tesla. My disappointment with this, I've let my service person know, and I've used their website as well. And then the bigger discussion is, how do you think this is going to affect full autonomous? Is there going to be, are they just going to go the speed limit and slow things down and annoy people both in and outside of the car? Do you think Tesla will offer some sort of go with the flow of traffic up to X miles over the speed limit option? Just your thoughts on that. Just wanted to see what you thought. Good podcast was great. Keep it going, and good wishes with NTP. Thanks.
So good news, Jason, and in fact, I already know you have found out about this because you called back to clarify such. But I think it's worth playing your call to others anyway, just as sort of a public service thing. Yes, the whole thing about with autopilot being updated to actually be more restrictive so that it would only go the speed limit and it wouldn't even go 5 miles per hour over like it used to be able to do. That has already, it's already in the process of being rolled back. That update is starting to deploy now. Elon had said that was only for, they're sort of being overly cautious. They were using the fleet learning and just trying to get everything, with hardware 2 back up to snuff. So, as to the other part of your question, I would expect that you'll have more control over how fast your Tesla goes relative to the speed limit once that level 4 autopilot is ready and the car is ready to drive itself. I'm sure it's going to be able to go faster than the speed limit for the very real, practical, real-world reasons that you yourself mentioned. So, Jason, thank you for that call. A couple more left. Let's go to Dave in the UK, who's checking in on the American tax rebate situation. He's just curious on that. Dave, go ahead.
Hi, Ryan. It's Dave here in the UK. Happy New Year for 2017, first and foremost. Glad to hear Maggie's back on the mend after last week. And hopefully everyone has a good 2017. I'm looking forward to the Xbox Scorpio, which I'm sure you'll be interested in as well, Ryan. And obviously the Model 3. Hopefully we'll move closer to some more details and release towards the end of the year. With that said, just had one question really, and it's not something that affects me in any way, but it was really just around the situation in the US with I think there's like a tax rebate or some kind of tax incentive for the first 200,000 electric vehicles or first 250,000 cars sold. I was just wondering where that situation is, because you reported on last week's show, Ryan, that Tesla sales have obviously increased again in 2016, and with the likes of the Chevy Bolt coming on the market this year as well, I was just interested to understand where things were with that. I know that you'd mentioned it before, but I've not heard you refer to it recently. So yeah, just interested on an update, just purely out of curiosity, really. But yeah, thanks for the show. Really appreciate the work that you put in, and yeah, keep it up. Cheers, mate. Thanks very much. Bye.
You are correct, Dave. This has come up before, but it's good to check in on it from time to time, since it does affect everyone that's planning to buy a Tesla in the future. And obviously, for particularly us Model 3 reservation holders, we're certainly concerned about it, because if we can get up to $7,500 off of our $35,000 to plus $1,000 car, that's a really nice, a big chunk of change back in your pocket there. So it's the 3's release. We're expecting it late this year, late 2017, if all stays on track. The sort of forecast, the best guess forecasts have been that it may run out around the time that the first, the early batches, the early Model 3s are starting to get delivered and hit the streets. Unfortunately, Tesla doesn't publicly report the number of cars it sold per country. So we don't know exactly how many cars are left on the 200,000 car limit that the tax credit is set up on. Now, the best guess, my best guess, anybody I could find's best guess, is you got to remember real quick that this is USA deliveries only, not Canada, not UK, just nowhere else. It's just for US because it's a US government thing. So it's 200,000 cars delivered to the United States. The best guess is that Tesla's about halfway there, or maybe just a bit more. So if, and that's if, big if the Model 3 stays on schedule, plenty of the first buyers should get a crack at it, because remember too that it phases out. Once they hit 200,000, they've got another quarter of full credit before it starts to reduce down over future quarters, and after a few more quarters, it will then totally be gone after some partial credit quarters. But yeah, it looks like the early Model 3 buyers for sure should have a shot at it. And then everybody else will just have to see, kind of, we're going to have to wing it from there. Remember too, though, that it is a tax credit. And you're only going to get that full $7,500 if you can actually claim that much. So it's not a guarantee that you're going to get $7,500 back. I say that only because I feel that it's better to have, and everybody's situation is different, but I feel like it's just better to be clear about it and set that expectation now, rather than have anybody out there in my kind audience be 100% factoring in a $7,500 rebate into your Model 3 budget. You probably shouldn't do it. In fact, I would suggest not factoring in the tax credit at all in any way, shape, or form. And then if you do get it, it's a bonus. You can either use it to lower your monthly payment, to get an option or two that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, etc. But just some food for thought again. Thank you, Dave, because that is an excellent topic that we need to try and keep tabs on, and it's a good one to check in on from time to time. Finally, this week, it's been a little while since we heard from our friend Lawton in Chicago, so he's back, and as usual, he's got a good question with him. He wonders if vehicles that are in self-driving mode should have some sort of signal to other drivers to let them know that this is in fact a self-driving car, and not to panic about the person literally sleeping behind the wheel. So Lawton, take it away.
Hi Ryan, it's Lawton from Chicago. Happy New Year. Congratulations on reaching your Patreon funding goal. All your dedication to the Tesla community is being rewarded. Hopefully you'll be a few steps closer to reaching the Model 3 of your dreams. With the recent Ride the Lightning phone call about your future self-driving Model 3, taking you to the airport while you're sleeping. I wanted to bring up the discussion topic of should vehicles in self-driving mode have a signal notifying other drivers? I believe self-driving vehicles should, since it will help build public confidence in the safety of autonomous vehicles when they see firsthand how well they perform. Having a signal would help decrease concerns when they see a car driving itself with no one in the driver's seat while all the passengers are sleeping. What should this signal be? While it would be very cool to have the kit from Nightwire red scanning LED light strip be the signal, it would probably be more feasible to have the yellow front turn signals and white rear backup lights constantly on. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to your thoughts.
Well, Lawton, I couldn't agree more with the idea that a signal is a good thing. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the world's various regulatory agencies that will set the rules. It could end up varying country by country, but I will say I think keeping those lights on constantly, as you suggest, might be a bit tricky, particularly with the backup lights, because then how would you know if the car's ever going to actually start moving backwards and you happen to be behind it? But maybe, just riffing off of your idea, maybe a steady, like triple blink of those same lights front and back that goes off every 5 seconds or so. So, the car's going down the road, driving itself, and then maybe the backup lights and the front turn signals just go flash, 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 just something like that. Maybe that could be a good signal that's not too distracting, but does make it clear that, hey, the car is driving itself. Lawton, thank you as always, and thanks to all of you who dialed in to the Ride the Lightning hotline. Again, the toll-free number that you can call anytime, day or night, is 1-888-989-8752, or you can use your phone recorder and email me a question that you've recorded via voice to teslapodcast@gmail.com. All right, be right back with a few final thoughts, and then I'll go ahead and play that full Gigafactory investor Q&A that listener Matt Parra kindly cleaned up as best he could. So be right back right after this. All right, so I've got a new referral code. I know I'm assuming, and we know what assuming does, but if in fact the referral program continues, because I'm recording on Saturday night late the 14th, and the new one, or the current one, runs I think through the 15th, and then theoretically we'll get a post from Tesla on Monday that says, hey, here's the details of the new one that's for the next quarter or so. If that happens, by the way, a number of you reached out very kindly offering yours under the same sort of arrangement, like, some sort of sharing of the prizes, and then, you're willing to give me those raffle tickets for the Ludicrous SRX. And this next one, if in fact it happens, so if it doesn't, just ignore it, but it's going to be Jeff from California. He's kindly offered up his, and he was the first one to do so. So if the new referral program starts and you wish to purchase a car, get yourself $1,000 off by using Jeff from California's referral code. It is this. It's a short link. Type this into your browser, ts.la/Jeff2311. That's Jeff spelled Jeff 2311. So that'll get you $1,000 off your car. That'll get me, again, if in fact the program continues, it'll get me basically a raffle ticket, a lottery ticket for a shot at an actual Tesla, which would be one of the best things I could ever possibly ask for. Okay. Patreon producers, I want to thank all of you guys. These are you kind folks pledging at the $20 or higher level. It is a growing number of you, which I sincerely appreciate. I'm going to go backwards this time, just to mix things up. Backwards on the list I keep written down here. Michael Lester, Matthew Parra, Logan Willis, Michael O'Prey, Lisa Kaz, David Kittle, Alexi Heft, Michael Lucas, Scott Gillis, John Waltower, Jonathan Wales, Nick Hoffman, David Brander, ZL Klein, George Cassiopo, Wolfgang Obergen, Pete White, DJ Harbaugh, Paul Hussey, and Jeff Bartram. Thank you all so much. If you would like to maybe at least take a look at the Patreon page and see if you might be interested in supporting my efforts here on this podcast, you can take a look at that page, patreon.com. That's Patreon, patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. And I remind you, abstractocean.com, makers of fine Tesla accessories, both for the cars and just fun things that you don't need to have a Tesla for. Take a look over there. If there's anything that interests you, put it in your cart, buy it. But before you check out, use the coupon code RTL Podcast at checkout, and you will get 20% off of your order. That's a pretty awesome discount. So thank you to the folks at abstractocean.com for offering that up to my audience. Follow me on Twitter at DMC_Ryan. Again, the email address to email recorded voice memos serving as phone calls, or if you just want to write me for whatever reason, the email address is teslapodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to stop by teslaweekly.com and sign up for Dave T's free weekly Tesla newsletter. He does a wonderful job of summing up everything every Friday right into your mailbox. teslarati.com, stellar job over there that they do of covering the day-to-day Tesla news scene. So stop over to teslarati.com. And that about wraps it up. Most of you subscribe to the podcast already. That's the easiest way to get it, because then it's just delivered straight to you every week. You don't even have to seek it out. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, or pick up the RSS feed. Or if you like, there are just individual MP3 downloads on the podcast's hosting page, which is at teslapodcast.libsyn, spelled LIBSYN.com. All right, that'll wrap it up for me. Happy electric motoring, everybody. And here, if you're interested, is the Gigafactory Investor Q&A that was held last week with Elon and JB Straubel, with the audio cleaned up as best as humanly possible by kind listener and Patreon producer Matt Para. So here is that, and I will see you all next week.
Pretty 11:45, so you can almost be able to get the lunch on your way out, get to your flights. I want to mention the 1:25 flight on Southwest from here to Las Vegas is delayed 10 minutes, so we got that for you. But you do want to make sure you get your luggage and your lunch and get out of here on time. So, without further ado, for your Q&A time, any questions related to the company, we're happy to take them. But this is a Gigafactory battery cell and pack day, so we want to kind of skew the questions in that direction. But with that, raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Andrea or I will bring the microphone to you, and that way everybody can hear the question. So, Andrea, why don't you start out taking the first question?
Thanks. You discussed a constantly improving factory on roughly a 2-year time frame. What do you see as the capital intensity of those improvements? And do you see third-party automation robotics companies offering solutions that you find acceptable, or is that something Tesla also working on?
Well, I think one way to think about the value of the company is the degree to which it has differentiated automation. So you can think of what's any example really? It could be like popcorn. Like if you make popcorn manually, you're going to get thrashed by somebody who's got a popcorn machine, and then you're going to get thrashed by somebody who's got an even better popcorn machine. So differentiated automation, I think, is fundamental to sustaining competitive advantage over time. The way that is typically done in the auto industry is catalog engineering. So you go to standard equipment suppliers, you look at the things that are on the catalog, you pick one of the machines, and you put it together, put the factory together that way. if you take that path, you're going to have no competitive advantage really from a manufacturing standpoint, because everyone can just pick the same set of things from the same catalogs. There's no long-term advantage. So I think it's incredibly important to invest in the machine that makes the machine, and to think of it as a tightly integrated system. Really designing it the same way we designed the car. Like in designing the Model S, X or 3, we didn't go and look at, say, parts from all other cars and stick together something that would look like some Frankenstein car. It would really not be differentiated. Now there are a few parts in the car, not many, less than 5%, that are in other vehicles. So if there's no value to us differentiating, then we don't do it. But I think it's really quite fundamental to focus on differentiated automation. And I came to this realization early last year when I was basically like sleeping in a factory trying to fix manufacturing issues. It was like hell. But I just did sort of backing up a lot of calculations for like, well, how fast could the factory go? How fast could the factory be? Essentially applying like the rocket equation to manufacturing. There's two parts to the rocket equation. It's like exhaust velocity and the proportion of the rocket that is propellant versus not propellant. So you take that approach to a factory and say, what percentage of the volume of the factory is active versus inert? That gives you a volumetric efficiency. And then what is the exit velocity of product from that factory? Something that's considered to be a very good car factory today is one that produces a car every 25 seconds, which sounds like a lot, but that's 5 meters. And if you go, so it's only 0.2 meters per second. A stroll, a sort of casual walk is 1 meter per second. So the fastest car lines in the world are 5 times faster than a person walking, or 5 times slower than a person walking. So there's a lot of room for improvement there. I think ultimately one should be able to get well in excess of 1 meter per second, at least 2 or 3 meters per second exit velocity from the factory. And then the volumetric efficiency of automotive plants is usually in the low single digits. In fact, I'd say for our Fremont plants, it's probably like maybe 1 or 2%. It's crazy low volumetric efficiency. Might be some good plants out there that get up to around 5 to 6%, maybe 10% at the tops. Now the gigafactory will be more like 30%, maybe 40%. And it's giant. So the output of this thing is just going to be insane. It also makes sense that like velocity is such an important thing. Like if you're competing, if two companies are competing, and one company can just crank up the speed of the factory by a factor of 5, and the other company has to build 5 factories, this is not a competition.
Maybe this is obvious from that answer, but we definitely are investing in that capability ourselves. We work with a few outside automation companies, but the majority of the core automation, Tesla is designing and implementing ourselves. And you of course saw the recent acquisition of Grumman Engineering. That's I think a key example of us really going deep in automation, and especially factory production automation. And Panasonic does some of the same things. So they build most of their own equipment. So the things you saw were in many cases on the cell assembly line were in many cases designed by Panasonic. It's not outsourced to some other company. So it's really creating true value there.
Yeah, you really have to be quite vertically integrated. We're going to take this to a level that's, I think, beyond River Rouge. In fact, ideally, I'd like to park this factory over a mine, and out comes a car. That's in the limit. That's the ideal situation. Right now, let's say with Model 3, we have version 0.5 of what we call alien dreadnought design. It's like by the time it's like really working well. It should look like an alien dreadnought. It shouldn't look like a normal factory. So, but even with 0.5, look at that, we've got like this global supply chain still, where things come from all over the world. And this is actually terrible for efficiency and for reliability of the supply chain. I mean, if you had a global supply chain, you're essentially inheriting global force majeure. So, okay, is it going to be hurricane, earthquake, fires, floods, somewhere in the world, guaranteed, at any point in time, there will be these things. If you have a global supply chain, that means you have to take into account global force majeure. It's crazy. So, and we've literally had everything, from ships sinking to, the factories burning down, anything possibly imagine, everything. But trunk carpet that got caught in a shootout between drug gangs at the Mexican border. It's like, we just want our trunk carpet, but it got impounded. It's like, there's like no cocaine, it's just trunk carpet. Just seriously, just give us our, please, can we have the trunk carpet? We'll take it, even still bullet holes.
Pollution closures in China.
Yeah, exactly. This is, it's sort of really ironic. We have 2,000 cars on ships waiting to dock in China at the end of last year. Couldn't dock because the port closures due to smog. We're trying to look at electric cars.
All right, we can take a question from this side of the room. And if you could please state your name and your firm, please, before you ask your question. That'd be great.
Mr. Jeff, good morning. Jamie Allergy, Consumer Research. Thanks for hosting this today. It's been a great opportunity. I wanted to understand, just sort of simplify as you see it now, your key competitive advantages, whether it's time, the time it's taken to develop this factory, whether it's automation and the capability there, or whether it's something more sort of integral to the process, whether it's the separator is thinner or the yield is much lower. The reject rate is much lower here versus maybe folks that have to go through third parties. Could you just kind of maybe rank order, as you see it, to put the key competitive strengths?
Well, as we discussed earlier, there's many. It's not a single, silver bullet that makes that possible, but I would say that the top grouping is really around the technology that's in the factory and in the process itself. And that is not standard. It's not out of the catalog. It's something that we're engineering ourselves, and we're improving ourselves with a lot of know-how and a lot of hard work. And what that really means is as we said, we get higher throughput, so we get higher yields. We get lower capex per unit output, which just translates into end cost because you're depreciating and amortizing the cost. So that's a key advantage. We can fit more in a smaller building, so that's again lower capex of construction, lower capex of the building, and a lot of that technology is also integrating multiple steps of the supply chain. So we're able to find ways to cut out some wasteful processes that really weren't needed when product was not taking a very direct path from its sort of predecessors into its finished goods. So we're doing things that are quite unique there that no one else is doing. And again, that translates into lower costs.
Yeah, there are remarkable things, a number of cases where it's like somebody's digging a ditch, filling a ditch, and then digging a ditch again. So you take lithium hydroxide as an example. We use lithium hydroxide in our cells, but most of the lithium out there the default is lithium carbonate. So what they'll do is they'll mine lithium hydroxide, turn it into lithium carbonate, and then turn it back into lithium hydroxide for us. Like, okay, that's pretty silly. Just give us a high-grade lithium hydroxide right off the bat, and don't convert it into one thing and then back into the other thing. But that's what was happening actually for quite a while.
And maybe I should just mention also that some of that technology extends into the infrastructure. It may not seem like a really critical thing, but manufacturing cells is very infrastructure intensive. The very dry conditions, cooling conditions, so dry rooms, clean rooms, recycled sort of flows of process chemicals, and we're investing a lot of time even in innovating those steps. So we're actually inventing, and building better ways to make the infrastructure run more efficiently. And that, again, infrastructure cost is a reasonably large percentage of cell cost, so when we can attack that, we get, again, strategic advantages on the final product cost.
Our rough estimate is that our output per unit volume at the Gigafactory is 3 times better than the next best factory in the world. That's our rough estimate. And it's a big factory.
Dan Benton. To kind of oversimplify, 3 years ago, nobody thought people would be buying electric cars. Since then, you've learned a lot about manufacturing. The industry has learned that maybe you can at least announce electric cars with long range. As you look out over the next couple of years, whose job is harder from here? Your ability to manufacture or your ability to actually get into this business of electric cars?
I don't really think about competitors that much. I think it's like if you just focus on being as good as you possibly can, and try to approach the limit of physics, then for anyone who's not trying to approach the limit of physics, you're going to lose. And so that's what we try to do here. We just take a physics-based approach to manufacturing efficiency, and I think that's fundamentally going to be what is our long-term competitive advantage that people just don't realize. I'm not telling people that this will be it's like that's no secret. What's crazy is that in the short term, our advantage is going to be autonomy. Short term meaning the next 2 to 3 years, and the long term advantage, like say over 10 years, will be Tesla will be the best manufacturer on Earth. That's our aspiration. And I don't know anyone who is actually even attempting to do that. Maybe there's somebody, but I don't know who that would be.
Thanks. Brian Brinkman from JP Morgan. You've said before that the Gigafactory is critical for the launch of the Model 3. I think here today we can pretty much see the Gigafactory is on track. Maybe you can let us know what's going on in Fremont to prepare for the Model 3. What does the ramp look like there? Any kind of update you can give to timing of the Model 3 launch? Thanks.
So the Gigafactory I actually feel pretty good about in terms of pack production, motor production, it's basically includes drivetrain, power electronics. That all seems pretty good. But I'd say like one of the riskiest long lead items. It's actually not it's not like the super advanced technology stuff there. It's actually some fairly basic stuff. The longest lead items are the stamping dies. So stamping dies for the A-class body panels and for the seats. That's the best knowledge that I have. But I think I'm going to put 6 months or so to solve that, and there's a lot of machine shops in the world, so I feel pretty good about solving that. And Sheila needs to come in on time on the stamping press. So Sheila is delivering an advanced stamping press for us in J1. So Sheila meets their timeline for bringing the stamping press in. Then I feel pretty good about the schedule.
Yeah, there is a huge amount of work happening at Fremont. It's just less obvious, perhaps, than here because it's reconfiguring inside the factory. So many things are moving out of the way. Spaces are getting ready and prepared. So that work is all underway and generally tracking on course, but you just don't see it, obviously, from the outside view as much as here.
Yeah, the final assembly for the Model 3 will be far more advanced than for the Model S and X. Don't do too much about that right now, but it's when you see it, it'll be like a step change better than the final assembly for the S and X. And it's still designed in a way that we can increase the velocity of the line. Like that's like the best CapEx way to improve. But, I mean, if you just speed things up, then like you don't need extra CapEx. It's good. Turn the knob and go faster. But, so yeah, frame from the back there.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You mentioned being on a scale or greater than for River Rouge. Why do you think that ultimately failed? And then why will this be sort of different?
I don't want to say the reason it failed because it's going to get me in trouble. Next question.
Bob Lash with Deutsche Bank. Was hoping you might, this is not so much a Gigafactory or Model 3 question, but you recently had a meeting with President-elect Trump, and there's obviously a lot going on. There's a change in the political environment, and it could affect the electrification of the auto industry, it could affect the solar industry and storage, but just generally, maybe you can just give us some takeaways from that and how you think the U.S. may be changing either adversely or maybe not at all.
Well, I think the President-elect definitely has a strong emphasis on U.S. manufacturing. So like we're building the biggest factory in the world right here. So I think that's something he's very supportive of. And jobs in the U.S., obviously he's very supportive of that. On climate issues, it's sort of a little bit more muddled, I would say. It's a little mixed. I think we may see some surprising things from the next administration. I don't think that this administration is going to take a lot of negative action against fossil fuels, but it's possible they may take positive action on renewables. Possible. Well, as far as like tax credits and things like the federal tax credit, the $7,500 thing, which is going to wind down anyway. If you're making 500,000 cars a year, that tax credit runs out at a few $100,000 cars. So it's not something like all of the tax incentives either don't scale or they differentially disadvantage Tesla, which is not. I mentioned this once before at a prior talk, but if you take like the zero emission vehicle credits, which are in 14 states, we get like 50 cents on the dollar for those. But GM can get 100 cents on the dollar by applying it to their existing program. So that we sell them wholesale, they get to use in retail. And that's why GM can do the Bolt at a theoretical $9,000 loss, but it's actually not a $9,000 loss because they get 100 cents on the dollar for their ZEV credits. So they get the incremental, they get $10,000, I think something like $10,000 more effectively than Tesla does for every Bolt. So the real question you're asking is like, how are you competing against those companies when they have differential advantage? And if President-elect were those are state-based incentives, but to eliminate these things, it would actually be advantageous to us in the case of ZEV credits. And then it really doesn't matter for the federal credit because of the scale. So these things all just become moot.
Thank you. Very good factory tour. We really enjoyed. Kim Chaudhary, Global Equities Research. Two questions. First, right behind these walls, we'll be having Model 3 drivetrain being developed. What is the logic behind it to have drivetrain and battery right here, rather than traditionally we have been having drivetrain in Fremont factory? Second question is, there's a lot of speculation, and I've been taking classes in Stanford from JV. There is a feeling like Model 3 may have 300 miles range. How are you going to publish that? And wonderful, keep up the good work.
I think we can keep up some of powder dry with respect to Model 3 announcements. But there's certainly, we haven't shown all the cards on Model 3, it's fair to say. Anything you want to add?
I don't think so right now, but I think as Elon said, there's upcoming announcements, upcoming changes and things that we can't completely talk about just yet. But on the motors, the reason we moved motor production to here is that we just ran out of room in Fremont. So, ran out of room. Didn't think we would. So, sure.
So, how important is common standards to mass adoption of EVs in your view? And can you comment on 18650 choice versus kind of the rest of the industry still going towards a larger format battery in terms of that evolution? Will either you change, or will the industry change 5 to 10 years out?
Well, that's what you mean by comms. You mean like vehicle-to-vehicle communication? Common standards. With respect to battery packs, I don't know. From our standpoint, we just looked and say, like, what do we think on a fundamental basis yields the lowest cost per kilowatt hour and the best energy density. A bunch of other factors like how well can you heat or cool it so that it can be effective in hot or cold climates, how long it's going to last, its resilience in a crash.
So we're using we just changed the design of the cell to 21 millimeter diameter, 20 millimeter height, well, 50, which is 18 millimeter diameter and 65 millimeter height. And then 20 is like the random zero at the end. One thing I think about is changing the name itself. I heard about random zero. Random zero. So 20 by 70 is we're really all our guys is sort of neighborhood. It really wasn't that's like really like a woman, and then the design standpoint, the modernization comes up with 8 flats past 21 millimeters. So these are 21 millimeters. So that seems to be the best thing for the market is to look at the fundamentals as the optimal cell size. There are real business reasons for the size of the cell. Going to start with why do I find this wrong? Because that is the non-molecular for going around. That's everything. With the group radius. And the solution on large molecular is with exoskeleton. The other certain since climate here, the body is simply electric. Why? So that you get parts. That's why you don't need to worry about trying to work. With that. Is this working?
Yeah. Maybe just to summarize, I don't think at these volumes, standards across the batteries matter much. Maybe if you are really low volume, but especially at hundreds of thousands of units a year, there's really not much point. It's probably a net negative to standardize because it means you're not really custom engineering for the solution that you want to build. And in terms of form factor, as Elon said, we're basically approaching it from a first principles point of view. And we've done the analysis pretty deeply. We did this years ago, and we continue to do it every couple of months and even update it. And right now we see that as the lowest cost and the highest cost performance, type and size of cell. There's a lot of aspects to consider here. It's the manufacturability, it's safety, cooling, all these different contributors. And I think a lot of the bigger other car companies have been kind of focused maybe too much on getting a very large cell because it simplifies their module manufacturing. And we're building modules here in this factory just right next to the cell line. There really is no differentiation. It goes straight from cell assembly into module assembly. But if you have if you have different factories building modules versus cells, and you think of them as a unit that you have to worry about part count on, then it leads you down the road to bigger cells.
Yeah, exactly. Also, like the bigger cell is, the worse your yield is. So, if you unwrap all the cells, you've got a certain surface area of electrode, If you, in the limit, if you said, okay, we're going to make just one big cell in the battery pack, well, your yield will be terrible because the odds of there being at least one tiny defect across that whole thing are very, very high. So if you can divide the cells up, then you can actually have a much better yield with smaller cells than you can with bigger cells. Think of it it's similar to like silicon. Like a big silicon wafer, it's very difficult to ensure that the big silicon wafer is defect-free. And that's why they don't make humongous silicon wafers.
All right, gentlemen, we have time for just one more question. I do just have to make a quick announcement here. Team, let's bring the first bus up. And just as though you're on an airplane that's arrived and people have connecting flights, if you are a person that is on a 125 or a 130 flight, let's make room for those folks to get their bags and get on the bus first. So we'll get on the first bus. And with that, we'll go to the last question.
Thank you. It's Dave Tamburino from Goldman Sachs. I'm right down here in the front. You got me. Wondering what your thoughts are on the recent announcements by most of the major entry into the electric vehicle realm, if you will. Do you feel like this is more regulatory driven, or if they truly want to be going down that path? Because it seems as if the initial volume stages are going to be very low. Particularly think about GM and what they're producing. We're thinking about 25,000, 30,000 units. It's a regulatory requirement. At what point in time do you perceive it as being real competition for your volume aspirations? And when do you think it's reached a mass market adoption from this? So a couple questions embedded there. What are your thoughts on what your competitors are doing? Do they really are threats, or is it just regulatory requirements? And where do you think it's going to really come in? Is it going to be cloud-free, or is it going to be a lower price version?
It's really it's really selling from a lot of probably more than additional customers. With respect to the other car companies, it's true that thus far their efforts have been to meet regulatory requirements. That's why GM is having at like 28,000%. And pretty much actually most all those will use it so it's basically to avoid so that's that inherently makes it not really a serious project. We're doing something which is sort of lower capital needs impact on that. It's not easy to scale. And that really only works because they can gain full retail advantage of those events. But it's ironic that tons of those assets for incentives for tax receive less. In fact, even the $7,500 full tax credit is okay by giving them 4 to 30 volts. And that incentive scale according to battery pack size, which is actually solved at the size of the 30 volt battery pack. It's like, what about people like us? Like, we don't try to hit that way. Yeah, I think all transport would be our conception markets will go way better. It's just a question of how long it takes. And I mean, the fundamentals of good Tesla, I think ultimately we measured last work, we accelerate the advent of electrification. Some of the make good cars, we'll sell the cars. My motivation is not to try to make more money or something like that. That's not. I think it's because I think it's important that we accelerate the advent of sustainable transport, sustainable energy production. We're not going to do this with straight rollbacks. So I welcome the actions that we like to call companies, and we're trying to be helpful in this regard by opening up patents. We build battery pack companies for Toyota and still building for Mercedes. I think the future is going to be all better, and Tesla will be a significant piece of that. I don't know, where detail brings that.